For chair?
I'll nominate Arnie Janinas for chair.
Second? Okay, so Lee's the nomination, Ariana is the second. Any other nominations for chair? Okay, all in favor of Arnie as chair?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Arnie doesn't get to vote. All right, so Arnie will take over the meeting.
Well, thanks for the confidence in my ability to run these meetings, or maybe just no one wants a job. I'm not sure. And it's interesting when we have a full room like this, it's usually because there's controversy. But it's great to see a lot of people here, for whatever reasons you're here. The next item would be to elect a vice chair. Do I hear nominations for a vice chair?
Yeah, I nominate Lee.
Second?
I'll second it.
Peter's made the motion, and it was, I don't think nominations even have to be seconded, but
Oh.
Yeah.
it was a good show of support. Any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, all those in favor of Lee Gustafson as vice chair, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Lee? Vice
Thank you.
chair?
Appreciate it.
I'd also just like to welcome our two new members at the end there, Ariana Knapp and Peter Hutkins. They were elected at the last election to the board. And welcome, and thanks for doing what you do for the community. And usually it's a little quieter here. The next item would be to elect a clerk for the select board. Usually that only involves keeping minutes in executive session. And I think there's a few other things that roll around, but that's pretty much it. And it's always not been tradition, but it's always happened a lot that it's some of the new members that get nominated for clerk.
And it's usually the one that sits in the last chair.
Well, I would like to tell everybody before you start that I'm dyslexic, so if I were you, I'd pass.
Well, someone has to make a nomination.
What?
Yep.
Sure. I'll try that.
Thank you.
That better?
Yep.
Thank you.
So I'll nominate Ariana.
I'll second.
Anybody else? Any other nominations for clerk? Hearing none, all those in favor of Ariana Knapp for clerk, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? And another thing I forgot to mention, one of our members, Heather Chase, is coming with us on Zoom. She's up at the Capitol. She's our representative for this area too, but she's joining us also. She's on Zoom.
Aye.
Hi, Heather. The next thing is time for the meetings. Usually they've been 6:30 on the first and third Wednesday of the month. They were at 6 o'clock for a while, but it's up to the discretion of the board when we would like to have these regular meetings. Today's meeting is a special meeting because it's not on the usual first or third Wednesday of the month. So everybody okay with 6:30? They want it earlier, later?
6:30 works for me because I have chores.
Chores.
Chores. Animals all must be fed.
Is everyone happy with Wednesdays?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep, yeah, I think so, yeah. So the first and third Wednesday, and what time?
6:30 is fine.
6:30.
6:30? We'll stay with 6:30? Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
All those in favor of the first and third Wednesday at 6:30 for our meeting times, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? And the last thing, we haven't always done this, but as a board, some boards follow Robert's Rules of Orders, some follow Robert's Rules of Orders for small boards. We've pretty much used the VLCT model, which is Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, rules of procedure for municipal boards. And that's what we've been using, and we need to re-adopt them every year. Or we should have been doing it, but that's the case in where we are now. So,
I'll make the motion to readopt the VLCT rules for meetings.
Yep, I can second that.
any other discussion on it? No. All those in favor of adopting those procedures, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No. So I think that's it for reorganization. Is that the last of our tasks that we have?
That's
right?
it. You got them all?
Because we usually have a whole list of all different appointments.
You're going to do
but
that
that'll
at your
be for
first
next
meeting in April. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
The next item is to approve our minutes from our March 1st Select Board meeting.
So I'll make a motion to approve the March 1st, 2023 meeting minutes.
I'll second.
So Lee's the motion, and Peter's the second. Anybody have any corrections, omissions, errors, anything on the minutes? I know you two folks are new, so.
I have none.
Heather, you okay with them?
They're nice at this time, yes. All good.
All those in favor of approving the minutes as written, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Minutes are taken care of. Next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. If there is someone here that would like to address the board regarding an issue that is not on the agenda, now would be the time to do so, and just come over to the mic and give us your name and have at it.
Okay, my name's Jeff Holden, lifelong resident here, and my family's lived in Chester for 5 generations. I have never spoken under citizens' comments as long as I've been here. I've spoken for giving reports to the board or answering questions about my departments or whatever, but never felt the need to make citizens' comments. But unfortunately, I think too many people keep quiet about things, and they need to start speaking up and making people aware that they don't appreciate them or whatever. I have concerns over an appointee that's being considered for the Police Oversight Committee. And at this time, I'm not on Chester Police Department or the Select Board anymore, so I have no conflict of interest at this time. I was on the police department back in 2018. I had a complaint lodged against me. And I'm just saying this for people to be aware of this situation when you're considering this, people to be on the board. I think there needs to be no bias and have no agendas if they're going to be on this committee. If it's for the good of the community, not just the good of certain people. This complaint was lodged against me that I engaged in unprofessional conduct while attempting to serve a subpoena. Well, the complaint was brought into this office and it went to the police department. My sergeant reviewed it and he did not see that I violated any of our policies or rules. That wasn't good enough for that subject. Went to the chief. Chief reviewed it, wrote a report, and that was not acceptable either. The complainant then went to the town manager again, and I don't know who made the decision, it was town manager, select board, or what, they decided to have an outside investigator at the cost of like $3,500 or $3,700 to the taxpayers. It's a 90-page report. The funny thing is, after 14 months of me not being able to say a word because I was a law enforcement officer and could not speak because I was under investigation, one of the subjects that made the complaint was able to speak in front of this board under citizens' comments while we were being investigated. And anybody who knows that should not be allowed. The investigator, like I said, after 14 months came back, 90 pages, with a 3-page conclusion, and I'm only going to read 2 lines out of this conclusion. Because I don't want to spend, be talking about 3 pages through this whole time. The 2 lines in this conclusion for this investigator said, based on the evidence in this case, It is my opinion that Officer Holden did not violate any law or violate any of the Chester Police Department policies. Well, part of my gripe is the town of Chester paid to have this investigation done, and because somebody didn't get what the results they wanted, it was never put out to the public. Now, I don't think that's right. You think that's a little biased? I think if you're paying for an investigation, the results should be put out to the public, good or bad. There's also, this subject has gone on further after I don't know if it was during when I was still on there or not, but wanted 2 other police officers fired. Did not matter what the investigation showed. There was 2 investigations on those officers, and nothing was found to result in their firing. What happened then? That subject made a complaint to the Attorney General's office against the then town manager. And the Attorney General's office investigated it, found no cause. Wasn't good enough. Another complaint was made to the Attorney General's office. They again found no cause. Now, if this person doesn't have an agenda, I'd like to know what you would consider an agenda. I don't think this type of person should be on the Police Oversight Committee. If you have any questions on me, I'll gladly answer them.
We can't have a discussion on this, Jeff.
That's right.
I appreciate
I'm
your
sorry.
comment, but
Thank you.
we have to leave it at that. Are there any other citizens' comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to old business. Julie, can you take us through our old business list?
I can. Just a couple quick things. The solar field, I still have not heard back from Greenbacker. I reached out to them again today regarding the appraisal. We'll keep trying to make contact on a regular basis. In the meantime, as most of you are aware, I did submit for Senator Sanders and Senator Welch. They do a request out on special appropriations. So I did submit to them. Maybe we can get some federal funding. It's a long shot, but it's a relatively easy form. So we have submitted, we may be able to get some assistance that way.
Julie, on that, on the solar thing, if Greenbacker keeps giving us the runaround, like it seems like they are during this whole process, do we have another avenue we could pursue or another recourse? Do we have to get legal involved in it, or?
I can certainly reach out to our attorney and ask what our next steps would be. We have a 7-year option. Of course, as we all know, there's a very large discrepancy between their number and ours, like double. I don't know if they are forced to negotiate with us, but it's certainly a question I can ask.
I have a question on that. Can we, they have an appraisal number that is much, much higher than ours.
Correct.
But it's higher than the tax appraisal number. So why can't we say, if they're not going to negotiate with us, why don't we just say, well, we agree with your tax appraiser number?
We could certainly, we can negotiate down, right? Like, they're not going to come all
not
the way down.
negotiate down, just tax them for what they appraised it for.
Barney?
That would be a question for the assessors.
Barney?
Go ahead, Heather.
I don't think we should start talking about our negotiation stance unless we're going to go in an executive session and warn it correctly. Because I want our, the way we negotiate to be kept confident, in confidence, so that we can negotiate a better deal when we get to the table.
Thank you, Heather.
I'll reach out to the attorneys and find out what our next steps would be.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Just quick update on the library. There are 2 grants opening that are specific to libraries. Both have rather large pots of money. I've met with Pamela and Steve, who is our facilities director. And we have identified several capital improvement projects, to include the sprinkler system. There's dehumidifiers down in the basement. other things I can't think off the top of my head, but there's several of them. So the first step is the capital needs assessment. I'll be submitting that next Friday. That then opens us up for the eligibility to apply for that funding. So I'll keep you guys posted on what we actually end up applying for. Keeping in line with grants, Yosemite, the Bruin Grant has opened. That's again due next Friday. The next step on Yosemite would be the handicap access. The Bruin Grant lines up nicely with that. Bruin Grant is anywhere, a project from 50 to 100,000, so the handicap access ramp, as well as the fire escape project would fall within that. So on our list from the engineers, that would be the next in line. So that will be submitted next Friday as well. And then ambulance, we have talked over the years about regionalization efforts. The state has put forth a bill, I'm not sure where it's at the moment, that will give a pot of money to Rescue Inc. for, to do a pilot program. So Rescue Inc. has reached out to Chester. Our call volume is too extensive or too high for us to be covered by another town, but is the opportunity for us to be part of a regionalization for other communities. And it's basically looking at redistricting for emergency services. So we're talking through that now. I don't have a lot of details at this point. Discussions are just beginning. They're going to come back to us with a plan. The great thing about as a pilot is if we don't like it, we don't have to continue in it. But it may be a great way for Chester to get better coverage, our surrounding communities to get better coverage, and produce some additional ambulance revenue for Chester. So I'll keep you apprised as that develops over time. And then last, something was mentioned a couple meetings ago about the potential of a student representative on the select board. So Lauren Fairman and I have had a couple of conversations. She is a superintendent of schools. Have had a couple of conversations about what that might look like. They are also going to be looking for student representatives for the school board coming up because the two they have are seniors. So her and I are going to kind of develop a plan of what their role and function would be. They obviously cannot be voting members on the select board, but to what level of participation they would like to be involved in. And so I'll be back with more on that to you guys, but it sounds like something that could be kind of fun.
I think it would be extremely helpful for the students to see how all this works and what goes on. And I know they have credits that they have to have for community service and things. And part of the discussion that we had when we did talk about that, and I think it was Ariana that brought it up, that maybe a representative on our Citizen Advisory Committee also. Because the school is so much involved with the police department also, and that might be a good avenue for information and discussion too.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
I think the one on the planning board,
You want one on the plan?
yeah. That gives you a whole nother perspective that you're not looking at, absolutely.
Yeah, the more younger folks we get involved in what goes on in our town and government and stuff, I think it'd be positive for everybody.
So I'll keep you apprised as we start working together what that description of what that looks like. And that's it for me for old business.
Any board members have any old business?
Not at this time.
Do we have a negotiation policy?
A negotiation policy?
Well, we just, Heather just said that, you know, she wanted to keep to what we'd done in the past.
Yeah, we don't have an actual policy, no.
All right.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Well, and the reason why is that's one of the reasons why we can go in an executive session is to talk about financial negotiations that would put the town at a disadvantage for having it out in public.
Thanks, Heather. Anything else on old business? I'd like to just give a shout out to our police department, the fire department, the ambulance department, and the town highway department because of the storm the week ago. A lot of the town was out for 3, 4 days, 5 days, and these guys were out there busting ass doing what they had to do. opening up the roads, keeping things going. They had a warming station going at the Emergency Services Building. They were stationed there, a lot of them, to help people. If they needed anything, they were ready to go in a moment's notice. And there was a lot going on with power lines down, roads not being passable, and everything else that went with the storm. So we're lucky to have these folks that do what they do for this town, and they really shine when it comes to disasters and situations like that storm. So I just wanted to get that out there. So we'll head on to our next item on our agenda, which is a discussion regarding the Julian Quarry. Everybody on the board got in their packet a summary. It's a jurisdictional opinion that was handed down by the National Resource Board regarding activity that's happening at the 3 quarries. I believe 2 of them are on Route 103. One's behind the old depot there. One's right on the side of the road that you could see a little further up. And it turns out there's one on Chandler Road. And from reading some of the information that was handed to us, there's a lot going on that probably shouldn't be going on from the report that was given to us from the National Resource Board. And there's a group here that would like to make a presentation regarding this issue to get people up to speed on what's happening. It seems like the organization that is running these 3 different quarries, they're all related to each other, it's the same place, have not been following Act 250 rules and regulations that were handed down to them quite a ways back. One of the quarries is not even supposed to be operating since 2008, I believe, and there's a lot more to it also, but they just seem like they've been flaunting the law and doing whatever they wanted to do, violating their Act 250 permit and just pretty much doing business any way they wanted to. So the neighbors that are in that area have been affected greatly by what's been happening, and they're here to give us a presentation on what's been happening to bring us up to speed. So I'm not sure who's
Mike, are you starting?
Yes,
Okay.
I am.
Come right on up to the mic. And they have your PowerPoints up on the screen,
All right.
okay?
I'll have to call people up to narrate some of this, but we'll
fine.
get there. First of all, we thank the Select Board and all other town of Chester officials for the opportunity to express our concerns with the existing quarry operations taking place in our neighborhood. We've prepared a very short visual presentation, which you'll see, revealing examples of our concerns of noise pollution, dangerous blasting, pollution of the Dean Brook, and visual expansion of the quarry operations, which have been very detrimental to our peace, our tranquility, and to our property values as well for the past several years. We could present you with numerous hours of documentation, and we'll be happy to do so upon your request, revealing ongoing examples of noise, dust clouds, blasting dangers, and a beautiful Dean Brook pollution that is totally unacceptable. In fact, I just heard about a half hour ago, the Dean Brook below the quarry is white tonight. Above the quarry is crystal clear. The State of Vermont Act 250 Natural Resources Board has been working on a solution to our concerns for the past 3 years and issued a jurisdictional opinion 2-324, Julian Chester, which you should have a copy of, dated March 6, 2023. In addition to the aforesaid concerns, we want to point out a few more things that, for whatever reasons, has been unaddressed by our state and local departments. First of all, Dean Brook pollution. This stream, we have numerous, more than what we're going to show you tonight. We're going to show you one. We have many, including today and last week, many of these. Dean Brook pollution, stream running gray-green from Chandler Road Quarry to Route 10 and beyond. Reported to State of Vermont Water Resources. With no action noted. We've also had contact with the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department. Same results. No action taken that I'm aware of. Heavy equipment traveling at will from Route 103, the upper quarries, down Route 103 to Route 10 to Chandler Road, and back with no visible registration for several years. Even your town vehicles has a plate on it, municipal plate. So if something happens, we know who to contact. I'm not aware, oh, wait a minute. Heavy equipment, okay. Heavy equipment traveling at will down the route. Not aware of any action taken by local, state, law enforcement, or the Department of Transportation. DOT, I don't know how this can go unnoticed. We see it every time we turn around. They run at will with these vehicles up and down our highways for free. At the conclusion of our visual presentation, we'll be prepared to answer any questions this board may have on the issues. And last of all, I just want to let you know, 2 or 3 years ago, we met with the Julian family at my house. Along with their foreman at the time, a Chester resident. They asked, their reason for coming was to ask what they could do to make us happy. And my final answer was, abide by the Act 250 and the local rules that have already been established. And we have not seen any of that in 2.5 to 3 years. We need your help and your support in order to make certain that this quarry operation is conducted within the state and local rules and regulations that have been apparently ignored by this corporation for an extended period of time. Now we're ready for our visual. Will that be large so people can see that?
About as large as I can get it.
Okay.
The board has a printout of it, Mike?
Would you be objection to people that want to see the pollution and the stones that landed on the railroad tracks, and if you to go up closer to the screen?
Hold on. It'll do.
Barry Goodrich. Barry is very familiar with the layout of the quarries on 103, believe me. And this is a visual of the expansion that we've had in the last couple of years, which I thought was to be initially by rules and regulations not more than 11 acres. But there you have it. The expansion of the quarry overlooking the propane fuel storage area where they're blasting, and the railroad tracks is on the right. Does that sound right, Barry? Yep. The other one is the lower.
The one to the right is the North Quarry. This one over here, I don't know what, that must be down towards where their buildings are.
Okay.
It's got to be.
The one on the left is the lower quarry, right across from the old store in Gassets.
I can't tell, it's so far away.
Yeah, it's. But those are the two quarries, and we don't have a photograph of the third quarry in the Chandler Brook, but we'll get there. Next picture. Sam, could you stand with us?
I don't stand with you.
This next,
No, on that picture, the two pictures before, I think it was the same quarry.
okay. This photo is an example of what we, as a community, have been living with for 2.5 years. And the closest one to that,
Is there any sound?
You have to get right up to the mic.
Yeah, it doesn't.
No, on the video.
Video up there. Is there a way to make
No,
the
there's
sound
no-
on the video?
The sound on the video.
That's what we got to hear.
All right.
yeah, we'd like to hear the sound on the video. I mean, that's what's mainly important here.
Susan, if you unmute your computer, can we hear the sound?
That's what you should be hearing.
In my yard.
One more time, Sam.
This is what I hear from my yard. I am a gardener. For 28 years, I have built and cared for gardens. We built our dream house in Chester and Gassets. We have 36 acres there. For the last 2 years, I cannot go out and enjoy the peace and quiet of my own home and do my gardening because of this constant pounding noise every single day. My nerves, my dogs, my cats, everybody in my family is affected by this. We are leaving Chester. Nothing is being done, and we are leaving Chester. So somebody else can have our tax dollars.
Hold on a second. You're going to have to come up and speak in the microphone and give us your name, sir.
Could somebody tell me what that piece of equipment is known as? What's it called?
Well, until
gonna-
recently, we weren't sure whether it was a drill or a hammer drill.
So it's a hydro hammer. And in the document, and in the documents that I've looked at, I've noticed that pieces of equipment were evaluated for noise, including a drill, but I never found anywhere where a hammer was evaluated for noise.
Listen,
So
excuse
the
me,
hammer
guys.
hasn't, okay.
The discussion has to be directed our way.
Oh, sorry.
So give us your name.
Sure.
And then,
Oh, yeah. My name is Jim Wells. My home is at 406 Clemens Road. impacted by this, by some of this. Yeah, so I think the point I'm just trying to make is that that device is called a hammer, and in the documents that I've looked at, I don't see where a hammer was evaluated for the noise impact. So it seems like a hammer was never, my conclusion is that a hammer was never intended to be used in these sites because it was never evaluated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And believe me, that's one example. Other neighbors, including us, have been listening to this day after day after day. And now it's gone to 12 months a year. The noise is there today, working in the upper quarry, establishing more, not less, but more. Next photo, please.
Mike, you got somebody out there from your
Yes,
group that wants it?
Roberta.
Ma'am, you're going to have to come forward to the microphone and give us your name and speak to the microphone.
I just want you to
Your
mention,
name, ma'am?
I'm sorry,
Your name, please.
Roberta Alexander.
Thank you.
I just want you to mention that, are they following their contract? Is that hammer being used only when it should be used for the people that are here?
Oh, my God. Roberta, as we know, it's used way over and above whatever rules and regulations that have been put forth by the town of Chester and the state of Vermont, Act 250, to the point where it's gotten to be ridiculous. What is the next? Oh. Yeah, these were supposed to be sound videos. The pond to the left is our pond. The one in the middle is one of my wife's flower gardens. And the other one is, what is that last one? Okay, those are depictions of what is being disrupted
Right.
at my place. My wife is a gardener. In the summer, she spends half her life outside, and now she spends it outside yelling at me to do something. We're totally not happy with the noise continuously bang, 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 bang for hours and hours at a time, day after day. We're tired of it. After 2.5 years, next photo.
Hi, I'm Leslie Thorson. I too, my husband and I are Chester residents. We can hear that hammering one Saturday morning at 7 o'clock lying in our bed. We both work and look forward to a nice summer morning. But I did want to clarify about that hydraulic hammering. It was reviewed by the state, and it said, it is clear from the permit record that hydraulic hammering was not contemplated during the permitting of the North and Allstone quarries. At the time of the permitting, the applicants represented that stone would be removed using a combination of drilling, blasting, and an excavator with a bucket.
And while we're doing comments, my name is Hugh Quinn. I live on Route 10 between 103 and Chandler Road. The Chandler Road quarry was not part of the original Act 250 permit because it wasn't owned by Julian, but it's since been purchased by Julian, and it's within the right radius of his other operations that it should be included in the business operations under the Act 250 permit. But as a result of that quarry on Chandler Road, there are dump trucks about 1 an hour all day long that go from 103 to Chandler Road, and they're going downhill, so they put on their air brake the whole way down the road to Chandler Road. And then there's trucks that come out of the quarry with finished rock, 18-wheelers, several a day, back and forth between Chandler Road and the Route 103 quarry, which makes a ton of noise and a ton of traffic, and everybody knows they're speeding on Route 10. Everybody does, and they're no exception. So for me, that's not part of the original business plan, and it's a huge disruption to anybody on Route 10 between 103 and Chandler Road. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
My name's John Novak. I live on Prusac Mountain Road, which is a spur off of Deanbrook Road. And that quarry, the driveway is on Chandler Road, but the quarry itself runs parallel to Deanbrook Road. So this quarry is directly across Deanbrook Road from me. And tonight, when I was heading here, that Brooks White, it just White's that paper. And these people are pumping this crap in there all the time. The town of Chester doesn't seem to care. I've called the police last year, and of course, when you call Chester Police, you get dispatch. And I've had 2 different people tell me, I can tell the chief, but he's not going to send anybody. Now, how would you call the police and have them say that to you? I mean, you know, this chief, of course, he's not the chief now, but the previous chief, no integrity. And my guess is this board backs him, along with the Planning Commission. Now, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but nobody has done anything about this DGA Who's. I mean, there was one guy that spent time down in Connecticut, the same company, for dumping in a wetland. And town of Chester lets them ride in here and do this to our town, our brook. I don't know how many of you are Vermonters, but this is unacceptable, what these people do. I mean, I listen to it all the time, and I can sit in the morning drinking my coffee and almost go into a rage because it's so loud. I can't call the police. I can't call anybody. I called you, Julie?
I'm Julie.
I talked to you on the phone. You didn't lie to me, but you sent the guy that did lie to me. I'm not sure which one he is back here, but the guy at the head of the Planning Commission, I asked him about this building that they built. And he said, well, somebody slipped it by him. How the hell do you slip a building by the Planning Commissioner with this kind of controversy going on for 3 years? I mean, I'm so disgusted that, you know, I don't trust any of you. I don't trust the police department now. How the hell do I know, you know, if I call anybody to do with the town, if they're going to show up if I need them? You know, I am so disgusted because you people let this being done, and they're breaking the law. Every day they break the law. Everybody lets them do it. The trucks aren't roadworthy, and everybody just lets them do it. I mean, it's like, where are we, in fantasy land here? This stuff is really happening. When they were getting rid of the dirt in Connecticut that guy got arrested for, there was a lot of Connecticut trucks up here. I can't prove it, I don't know for sure, but I got a feeling they dumped that tainted dirt right over here on Deanbrook Road. Now, I mean, and this is a daily thing. And the hydraulic hammer, I hear that a lot. And I'm under the understanding they aren't even supposed to have it there. You know, and there's been so many complaints to the police, and nothing's done. Nothing is done. So what are we supposed to do as residents of the town of Chester. We're supposed to let this go on, let these people run over us. These people don't care. I can tell you that. They don't care. Because I know they've caught me going over there and taking pictures. And there was one, the first time I called the police, they sent a guy to investigate, a cop. He drives in, turns around in my yard, and drives back out. How do you investigate something in 2 minutes? He should have got out of that cruiser, walked the brook, taken pictures, made out a report. I mean, how frustrating do you think this is? I can't even go out of my house. Even today. I stayed inside today, beautiful day, because you listened to it. It's just, you know, they aren't supposed to be here anyway. They shouldn't be here.
Sir, I think we've got the gist of what you've been saying, and I appreciate your comments, and we'll take them into consideration as we continue. Thank you.
Can we get the next slide?
Yes, we did.
Safety and environmental impact concerns. Well, we certainly have those. Environmental impacts, our streams, dust clouds going down between Route 103. On one day I photographed it and videoed it. I'm glad the wind wasn't blowing toward our farm because we would have had to breathe it then, but it was going down by Palmer Goodrich's, which was good for me, but not for Palmer. Safety, we've had blastings that scare you to death. You think there's an earthquake. Do we have a warning, a horn? Do we have guards out there on the road of 103? Do we have any warning whatsoever that they're going to be blasting? And we have lived with that many times over the last 2.5 years. Thus, the concerns like John, who sees the Dean Brook pollution every day of his life and listens to the quarry every day. He's very frustrated. And so are a lot of other people living in Yassets, believe me. Go to the next slide. Blasting, I'm going to get Barry up here because Barry went down and photographed this. It's debris from a blast down onto the railroad tracks, carrying rocks as far as the shoulder on Route 103, damaging the railroad track itself, and it's right across the street, or across the stream, I should say, from a propane storage facility. Have we seen any derailments lately on the news? I don't want a derailment on a propane facility by something caused by rocks that were unattended by the quarry operators. But Barry.
These are the rocks that I took a picture of right after they blasted. You can see the railroad tracks. That was a batch of rocks that come down. I've got the next one.
More slides with the same blast. So advance through the slides, there's more.
Yeah, there's more with your blasting, Barry.
Yeah. This is one that came down and hit the tracks, that big rock to the left. You can see where the rocks were hitting the railroad tracks and the center rails there.
Next slide.
some of the dirt that's on the tracks from the blast. You can see where the rocks hit, the scouring on the rail.
Next slide.
I don't know what that is. Oh, that's where the tracks are, and that's
Yes.
where they were blasting from. And it come down across the railroad tracks, it went across the river. It knocked some trees into a power pole that eventually caused a fire that the fire department had to come put out. Go to the next one.
Next slide.
That's Dean Brook.
That's the clear.
That's the clear
Dean
water.
Brook that we're all used to.
Yeah.
And then it runs past the quarry.
Next slide.
Do the next slide.
Yeah.
The one on the left is just before the quarry, and this is right where the quarry is. This is where it's going down through.
Next slide.
Next slide, Susan.
And bear in mind, this is not the only photograph. We have a lot of these photographs of this pollution of our stream.
Yeah. This is what's coming out of the quarry and coming down and heading down through.
Next slide.
That's just above the quarry. See how clear the water is? Okay, that's where they blasted from. To the right, and that's where it come down onto the railroad tracks, across the river, and we've got pictures of rocks that landed upside of 103.
Next slide.
That's the same area.
Next slide.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. To the way to the right, right to the edge of the picture is where they blasted from, and it traveled all the way to 103 into the river tracks right by the propane company, and they landed by the road, right side of the road. One of them landed on the other side of 103. That's pictures of the area of the North Quarry.
Karen McAllister, I just wanted to speak to the blasting for a minute. We have no notification when it's happening, and the last time it happened, we were having someone paint our house, and they were up on a ladder when it happened, and we were very, very thankful that they didn't get hurt, but it scared the bejesus out of them, and I know some of our other neighbors have had similar experiences.
Oh, okay. This is the local office for the quarry, and that's right adjacent to Route 103. And you can see the number of pallets of stone that are stacked up there. That is certainly not the most that I've seen. I've seen a lot more than this recently, and that's what adds to the truck traffic. These stones are blasted out of one side of Route 103, trucked over to the Dean Brook Road, to the other quarry. The people are washing those stones, cutting those stones, letting the sludge go into our stream, and then trucking them back here on pallets to be sold for thousands of dollars. Thousands of dollars. And it creates a lot of traffic and inconvenience for us that live there, as well as other people as well, no doubt.
I'd just like to say that probably 90% of these rocks are going out of state. And this, can we back up to that, where that orange truck was? And the stone?
Oh.
Go backward.
Sue, they'd like to go back a couple of frames if you can.
I'm trying, sorry.
No, it's okay.
But anyway, where you saw the orange truck parked behind those pallets of stone, it's where they fuel their trucks. Now, my understanding, they spill a lot of fuel there. They get it on their tires and they're going to track it out into the highway, which is a big, big hazard. Say nothing about when it rains, it just goes into the Williams River.
Are we all able to read this next picture? That current public corruption case, Fairfield, Connecticut, 12 felony counts, including illegal dumping of toxic, hazardous materials under Town Pavilion Park, forgery, larceny, bribery, conspiracy. That's the company that's operating in our neighborhood.
And I just want to add to that, the charges and the legal dispute with the town of Fairfield, Connecticut have been ongoing since 2017. Officials in 9 state and federal agencies put resources into their investigation of their acceptance of contaminated materials like asbestos at PCBs while managing the fill pile, and their selling of contaminated fill for other town construction projects. The town is currently seeking $3 million in damages for these various environmental crimes. Don't let Chester be Fairfield, please.
Just, I keep thinking about all this. Back last May, I think it was. Now, what they have done, they've built this big building, and it was for storing equipment only. And what they've done is they've got a little factory in there. And what it does, it cuts the stone smaller. And that's where your dust is coming from that they push into the stream. And they play music, which, you know, I have no problem with anybody playing music when they work, but it's so loud. That's another frustrating thing that I listen to. I can't even hear myself think. And it's lousy music. I hate to bring this up, but they're Mexicans. And it's in Spanish, I think. I don't know. But it is so loud. And last May, I sent an email to their Fairfield, Connecticut. That's their main office. And I said to them, something to the effect, I understand man's got to make a living, but I'm a neighbor here, and I would really appreciate it if you'd stop the music. It's just so loud, it drives me crazy. And it just seems like a couple of days after I sent that, the music got louder and more often. So, you know, they just don't care. They don't care about anybody but themselves. So.
Sam Melanson again. When Greg Adamovich owned that quarry, they had a blast. It wasn't that bad, but it was, you know, it was a blast. And he sent, was it state up to test our well to make sure he had not damaged anything. When this company came in, I don't think they know how to blast, because the former owner was able to do it safely and without threat to the neighbors. The first blast this company did knocked things off the shelves of several of the buildings in that corridor. It was so, my entire house shook. And I was worried that something had happened to our well, but nobody ever sent anybody up to check it. They didn't care. They didn't check with their neighbors to see what was going on. They got another company in there to blast, because obviously they didn't know how to do it safely. And they're ones that are doing nothing about safety of the neighbors, no warning, nobody on the road, directing traffic so that they can stop traffic when they blast and then let it go through like responsible companies do. They're doing nothing to ensure the safety of our neighbors. And it was proven with Greg that that quarry could operate. He even was doing something on Saturday mornings that was noisy. My husband called him up and said, could you please hold off on Saturday mornings? It's our one time to sleep in. And he was agreeable. He stopped doing what he was doing, stop the noise that was bothering us on Saturday mornings. But this guy just doesn't care. He pays fines and carries on. He pays fine after fine after fine and just keeps doing what he's doing. Nothing is stopping him. And it's I'm just so frustrated. I hate to leave Chester. It's a beautiful town. But we're right above the Gassets Gorilla, if anybody knows what that is. If you go on 103 coming from the north, there's a gorilla in the stone there. Y'all should be famous for that. But we own the land right on top, right across from that quarry. And we can't live there anymore. It's unlivable for us. So we're leaving.
Hi, Leslie Thorson again. I just wanted to read from the jurisdictional opinion where it says, records received from Mine Safety and Health Administration about inspection and citations for mine safety, health, and administration violations between 2018 to 2022 verified the use of stone saws, rock splitters, stone chisel, excavators, front loaders, and a crushing plant at the North Quarry.
Thank you, Leslie. Mike, do you have anything else on your presentation that you would like to share?
I think I'm done.
Do we have more pictures of the stones you wanted to look at?
Yeah, there was one that we didn't see, and Barry was there to watch this happen. After the stones came down onto the railroad tracks, employees of the quarry came down and picked the stones up and stacked them away from the railroad tracks. And I'm sorry that picture didn't come out for whatever reason. But they certainly knew what they'd done, and they moved the stones off the tracks and put them away. Thankfully, they did that. But there comes a time with train derailments, as we've all been aware lately, too little, too late. And there we have it.
Thank you, Mike.
One more slide? Yep, the end, the last one. Can you go to the last slide, Susan? What are we looking for from the select board? It should be the very last slide.
Oh. Visibility, which is in the rules and regulations. We're going to plant evergreens, and we're going to make a berm, and you won't even see our quarry from the highway. Well, the next time you drive by, take a good look.
Karen McAllister, sorry that you can't see the last slide, but you have it in your presentation. So what we're looking for from the Select Board, we're looking for legal support from the town of Chester to help to make sure that there is strict adherence to existing permits, that hopefully we can be assigned a central contact person for our issues, and that there's local monitoring, inspections, and observations at all of the quarries. We have a few questions for you. We are wondering if the town has resources to test the water and the soil at the Chandler Quarry location. We're wondering who's responsible for the required yearly engineering site review that has never been done. And we are wondering also what happened to the required reclamation plan at the North Quarry. That hasn't been done either. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. From the presentation that we got and from all the comments that I've heard from all the people, we've got a serious, serious problem going on here. I've seen these quarries from the road, never heard of any other complaints about them, never knew that these issues existed, and it's not an excuse. I'm sure you people have been contacting who you can and what you could do as far as making your complaints known. I would hope that on our end of it, we will look into the areas that we do have some control over to see what we can or can't do. There are a few things in there that were mentioned that we might have some kind of say in as far as regulating or helping things along to do what's supposed to be done. Looking at the documents that was handed down from the National Natural Resource Board, it's been going on for a long time. This isn't just happened overnight. It's been cumulative over the years that they've totally disregarded any type of regulations that they've had put on them. I don't know exactly where we turn to as far as a lot of the answers that you're asking for. I know that the town has dealt with attorneys regarding Act 250, and maybe there's an avenue there to speak to someone that would be able to help us to see exactly what we can or can't do as a town and what regulations that we have some enforcement power. A lot of it seems like it's Act 250, and I'm not passing the buck and saying they're the ones that are in control, but I believe for the whole state there's one enforcement officer, and I'm not sure if that's correct or not. It seems like when Act 250 comes and you have to apply and go through the process to get an Act 250 permit, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of stipulations and a lot happens. It seems afterwards, after the Act 250 permit is in place, not much happens afterwards as far as follow-up. I don't know the details about a lot that was presented here today. It seems like there's a real lot wrong with what's happening there. And from the impression that I get from the company that must have deep pockets, that doesn't give a damn about what goes on at their sites environmentally, permit-wise, or any other stipulations, just by the fact of some of the examples that were given in Connecticut regarding the charges and things that were brought up there. I guess that mentality of that company carries through in what they do and what happens. Hold on a second, sir.
You have a raised hand. You have a
We've
raised
got a
hand.
couple here, too. Yeah, I'd entertain if somebody wants to raise their hand back there, whether you'd like to come up to the microphone and give us your name and you could speak. And I see the raised hand on Zoom also, and we'll let you speak in a second.
Jason and Andrew Julian. We're with Allstone Julian Materials. I know we weren't formally notified of the meeting tonight, and we learned through the grapevine this was going on. Obviously, it is a very important operation for us, and we wanted to make sure we were here tonight to just listen what's going on. We're really not doing a presentation. We're not commenting on anything. But
Can I just interject something?
Sure.
What were your names again, and exactly who are
Jason
you?
Julian and Andrew, my brother Andrew Julian.
Okay, okay. So you guys are the guys that own the quarry through an
Yes, we
LLC
do.
or what?
And it's an important operation for us. I mean, we employ 45 people that have families here. They all live locally. You know, we you know, some of these complaints, I mean, our office is right there. It has 3 people working in the office. Our office has told us that no one stopped in, no one has, you know, said they had a problem or a complaint. I mean, we would have obviously addressed those complaints. You know, again, I don't know if you want to just talk a little further about that.
Just some of the things, I mean, the
that,
quarries, we're going to have quarries that have been around for decades up in Chester. We made a large investment in Chester. We care a lot about Chester. Like Jason said, there's over 45 employees that work for us who live in the town of Chester, support the local businesses. They have families here too. Right now, we have attorneys, we have consultants, there's engineers that have been working on this for the past several months. And going through the JO that we saw, our attorneys saw, there's a lot of factual and legal problems with the JO that they're addressing now.
JO meaning?
Which is a jurisdictional opinion.
Okay.
So-
That document that we have here that was presented to us?
Yes, correct. So with that being said, our attorneys that advise us, they will be notifying and updating the select board and as stuff comes along, and it'll keep everyone abreast of kind of what's going on with the operations as they progress forward.
Yeah, anything to do with Act 250, they'll definitely bring in, you know, to the town's, you know, notice.
Two things I just want to address really quick. As far as our blasting, we use the largest blasting company in the country who blasts for us, so they follow all the guidelines, just so everyone knows.
They contact your fire department, the police department.
Roads are always shut down on 103, blocked off in both directions. And also, I heard about trucks and
Well,
whatnot.
they have a seismologist also, they monitor, they, you know, the blasts are controlled, they have blasting mats, and so.
I heard about out-of-state trucks and whatnot. All of our trucks, proud to say, are registered in Vermont. They're registered within the IRP program in the state of Vermont, so.
You know, it's interesting of what you're saying, but when I look at documents like this and pictures and stories about everything, it sounds like you got a serious problem there, and whatever you're doing ain't working.
Well,
I mean, that's just my impression. I'm not a lawyer, I haven't studied everything, I haven't gone through everything, but there's some serious issues here that are affecting a lot of people, never mind how many people you hire and you work, and I understand that's good for the economy.
Sure.
But following guidelines that are on an Act 250 document, a quarry that was supposed to be closed in 2008 or 9, it was supposed to be reclaimed, no rock crushing. I mean, there's some obvious ones in there that would raise red flags and say, what's going on? And that, does that occur to you?
No, there's all things that, you know, we have, our attorneys and engineers are addressing right now, like I said, and, you know, they're going to be prepared to discuss. So we're not going to comment on that tonight. We purchased the quarry. It was, you know, we were operating it the same way that things were being operated previously at all the locations. We purchased it, you know, and are doing the same things that basically they've been doing there. And the quarries on 103 have been operated, you know, as far back as the early 1900s. And so it's...
I mean, you have an obvious quarry that was closed down in 2008 that's in operation.
That's something that our attorney and engineers are evaluating. I don't know that, you know,
Okay.
honestly, that...
I have some interesting questions, because.
We're not going to have a trial here, but I
All right, no,
understand. Go ahead.
just,
I know.
I'm on the planning board, and I've been on the DRB. I see an awful lot of town permits that are missing. And I don't know, I think if you're going to talk about Act 250, Act 250 is going to tell you that you have to have the local permits. And I haven't seen them. And I'd love to see the one, well, Chandler Road.
Which permits are you referring to?
Chandler Road would have to have, you're actually bringing things in and manufacturing there and bringing the materials out. Do you have a permit for that? You have a permit for a building. You have a permit for a quarry, you haul material out of. When you process and make things, you haul things into it, haul things out. I am unaware of any permit for that.
Well, again, I mean, that's something I think our engineers and our, you know, our consultants are going to have to address. I mean, like I said, we weren't really here tonight to, because like I said, we didn't realize it was a public meeting with, you know, what this was on the agenda, because like I said, we really didn't have notification. We weren't really prepared to, you know, to give a presentation. We really would not have our team of consultants and other people here with us to, you know, get more into.
Formal presentation.
A formal presentation.
Was that an offer?
Was that?
Was that an offer to bring your team here?
Like he said, this is something that our attorney and our engineers are working on, and he said that we told them how important this is for them to, work on anything that they've been notified of, and they said they're going to coordinate something with the town. So,
Can I make?
Arnie?
give a train or dates or anything else, because.
I have a question. Are you operating a hydraulic hammer, as we've been discussing?
We purchased the quarry with.
Excuse me. Can you talk toward the
Can you
microphone?
use the microphone, please, so that everyone
People
can
on
hear you?
Zoom need to hear
Oh,
the
okay,
microphone.
that's all.
Thank you.
Close to the amp. So you do have that machine, and as we understand it, it's not permitted. And as you've heard, and we have, many of our citizens are disturbed by it. You, as the owners, have an opportunity to make a nice gesture here. If you're operating a machine that is clearly disturbing the peace of our residents, you're standing behind lawyers, nobody else is.
No, we're not standing
You
behind
can
lawyers.
make a gesture. You have heard the complaints. You are the owner. We don't have to wait for a lawyer. Just bear that in mind.
Well, one thing to.
Arnie?
Like I
Closer to
said,
the
that
mic,
that
guys.
machinery, we purchased machinery that came with the quarry, and that was operating before in that quarry.
You are operating it. You don't currently have a permit, as we understand it. I'm just putting it out on the table. If this is a two-way street, waiting for your attorney is not coming down the street. And I apologize, I cut Heather off a number of times.
Oh, I just want to ask these two guys, the presentation we just saw had some, and I don't have it right in front of me, but some things that you're facing in Connecticut. Is that an accurate reflection of what's happening for you all in Connecticut?
No, not at all. Our company's been in business, since 1907. We've had a perfect track record. We've never defaulted on a project. Everything's been on time, family business. And quite honestly, there's two sides to every story. That's an ongoing case. I'm not going to comment on that case.
So there is a case against you in Connecticut.
I think we have to be careful about the topic that we're going to be discussing, and I think we should stick to the topic of how it affects Chester and what's going on in Chester.
That's a separate entity, and it's separate from this operation. And again, that is something I'm not going to discuss any further because it doesn't have anything to do with this.
So, yeah, if I.
Well, and the Act 250, what are the hours of your operation according to Act 250? Because it's very specific, typically, the permit that says that you can operate from 9 to 5, X amount of days per year, etc.
It's 7 to 5, Monday through Saturday.
Wow.
We're not working those hours.
So if I could just make a couple of comments. I used to be in the environmental business. I understand, as one of the engineers, that you can hide a lot of what your responsibility is. And I'm not saying you guys are doing that, but I just want to make a recommendation to you. There are a lot of frustrated people in this room who are directly impacted by the things that you guys are allowing to happen. And I understand that there's studies that can happen, and there's a bunch of things you could do. Realistically, though, if you wanted to make a goodwill gesture to our community, to Chester, that you would invite the people who have spoken here today to address you personally, or in a, some kind of a meeting where they could express. You've heard a lot of it today.
Sure.
So I'm not sure whether another forum, but just to show people that you do care, because I've heard a lot of people say you don't care. So my recommendation would be to do something for our community. Ariana gave you a good suggestion. There are a number of other things that can be done. The other comment that I'd like to make is relative to the requests that have been made by the group who is affected by your operations. The state is normally slow to react or act because of personnel issues, because of jurisdictional problems, et cetera, et cetera. So we could be sitting here in 3 more years having the same exact discussion because the state doesn't have any way to do this. And that would probably be good for your side, not good for our side. However, I'm going to say that the best way for you folks to work, since we have very little jurisdiction on most of the things that are going on, we can address some of the issues relative to policing and all that stuff. But you need to contact your state representative, your state senators, and have them start putting pressure on the A&R and to ask them to personally take the time, make the time to do this investigation, to follow up on all these requests. I know it doesn't help you guys out, but, oh well, I'm sorry, but from the standpoint of what we can do as citizens, me sitting behind this desk, or as a private citizen in Chester, is to call my state representative, who happens to be on this phone call, and call our state senators and ask them to put pressure on the A&R, because you know, you're making phone calls, you've made the case that nobody's listening to you, well, you need to ratchet up the request. So a couple of comments from you guys to listen to people and to let them know that you hear and you care, and maybe doing something that might cost you a little bit of money, but would certainly go a long way to making the frustrated people in this room comfortable and happy.
You know, and again, we're not trying to.
Don't forget about Barry.
Okay, just hang in there. Go ahead.
By no means are we trying to hide behind engineers and attorneys. Like I said, you know, typically we would prefer to sit down with everyone in the community to talk to people, hear what the concerns are. I mean, so, you know, we're up here, you know, every, you know, other week. And we split our time. I mean, this is important to us. I mean, so we like being up here. We want to work with the community. We want to see what we need to do, so.
Well, and I appreciate you guys walking from the back of the room up here to take the heat. I think that shows.
Full of people, I mean,
Yeah,
obviously. and, you know,
it's not something that's comfortable for you guys, I'm sure.
Barry, is that you that would like to make a comment with the hand up?
Yeah, if I can. I had to travel today. I'm sorry I didn't make it. I'm in a Dunkin' Donuts in Keene. They're kicking me out here at 8 o'clock. I'd just like to say that that was quite a presentation that the folks made. I don't think I've seen that sort of torches and pitchfork type of presentation before in a while, and I respect where they're coming from. I know I have my business along 103, and part of what I have to deal with is all kinds of truck traffic, and not so much from the quarry, but I choose to be there to have my business. And, you know, it is a little bit of a not in my backyard type of thing that we're dealing with here. I want to say that I feel like I'm friends with the Julian family, and I think that they are good people who do want to do well in our town. I think they've been portrayed in a way that doesn't reflect the way that I know them, and I think that if we give them a chance, they'll step up to the plate. I do think some of the things that have been brought up a little bit unfair and maybe should not have been stated, because I don't know, you know, how much fact there is to that. But I guess if people want to make comments in a public forum, they can do as they will. But you know, I respect both sides of this, and I think that we should give these guys a chance and not throw them under the bus. So that's where I'm coming from.
All right, thank you, Barry.
Yep. Arnie?
Excuse me? That was Barry Pinsky, I believe, that was just speaking. Barry
Arnie?
Pinsky. Yes.
As far as notifying your state rep, I'm going to reach out to senators tomorrow, and if you can, Julie, just get people's, make sure we have all the names of the people who are here, I'd appreciate it.
We do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Heather.
I think it's very important that we start some kind of dialogue here between your company, your lawyers, or your engineers, or whatever. Somehow we have to make this work.
Well, we agree. We want to come to some type of mutually acceptable agreement. I mean, and, like I said, that's why, honestly, we, engage the attorneys and engineers to start working on this and, addressing everything, because, we told them that really time is of the essence. And I know that, our entire team that we hired is saying, listen, they don't have a date when they were going to come in and give a presentation, but, they wanted to hear what the whole tone of the meeting was. We really didn't know what this was about tonight. We wanted to hear everyone out, hear what was going on. We took notes, and we're going to go back to them and try to address it, so, yeah.
Is there anyone else that would like? No, sir, excuse me, sir. Back down, please, until you get recognized. Mike, would you like to get up? Go ahead.
No, thanks for letting us come up and speak.
Thank you.
I guess the last thing I need to say is we tried 2.5 years ago. We had these people, their family, in my family room discussing what our problems were. In the end, I said, what's going to make me happy? Because that was the question. What will make me happy? I'd be happy if you would just abide by the Act 250 permits and the rules and regulations put forth by our town. Since then, 2.5 years later, I've sat back, as well as the rest of our neighbors, and we've seen that quarry operation make a total mockery of the State of Vermont Act 250 and a total mockery of every rule and regulation that our town put forth. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir, if you would like to just give us your name when you get to the microphone. And
Good evening, my name's Rennie Melanson. I'm the closest landowner to the North Quarry, and the pounding that has been going on has absolutely ruined our life there to the point where we had to move. And I appreciate the fact that the Julians have shown up here, and I'm thinking that going forward, maybe the best thing to do is starting tomorrow morning, they only engage in activity that is permitted for their 2 quarries. And the North Quarry, that was supposed to be completely reclaimed by 2008, stopped all activity there. And going forward, only do the operations that you are permitted for, and that is no operations on the Chandler Road Quarry, no operations on the North Quarry, and then just follow the rules and regulations on the Center Quarry. Thank you.
thank you, sir. What was that, Sue?
It's Heather.
Oh, Heather, go ahead, Heather.
Sorry. How would we as a town, and I can't see if other people want to talk, so my apologies.
Oh, it's okay.
Peter, how would you suggest do we have Preston review what policy or what permits they have and what permits they don't have?
I think that because things are kind of in a shuffle, what I would do at this time is I would let Julie and Preston research it and talk with the town attorney. There are certainly permits that are missing, and the town attorney would probably be the best to be able to address it with those two. And
Well, I don't think we have to wait to do that. So, Arnie, I'd like to suggest that we follow Peter's lead with that.
I definitely agree with action taken, and we're just going to have to decide where it's going to go and how we're going to deal with this. And we're going to have to sit down with council to see what we can or can't do and what we have a direct effect on that we can actually change or make right, or how that works. A lot of this is out of our jurisdiction. It's an Act 250 thing. It's a state thing, and we have to press our representatives, sorry, Heather, our senators, maybe even the Attorney General, if that's what we feel.
And I have no problem starting that tomorrow morning with a discussion with the senators who are all, none of them are novice, and they can give me some advice of how to proceed. So I'll be having that conversation, you can rest assured.
Yep. And I think it's going to be a learning experience for us also, to see what we can or can't do, to see what has happened or what has not happened, what was legal, what was not legal. It's hard to make decisions and take actions without sitting down and really sifting through all the information that's available that we have and the resources that we have.
So you want to allocate attorney time?
Yeah,
I would
I'll
think
make-
this is
I can make a motion.
important enough, yes.
I don't need a motion, I just have to have that
Just a
direction from the
consensus
board.
of the
Because this
board
is
that
not going to
we're-
be inexpensive, this is going to be a
No.
significant amount of time.
It's going to be a couple bucks.
Which is fine, I just need that authorization from the board to do that.
So can I ask a question? The discussion started with, let's review permits, town permits that are not.
I think Preston has a good
Existence.
understanding of what.
So my recommendation would be have Preston start that process and then bring in the attorney if we need to.
Okay.
Well, and also, let's get an update and maybe run it by the attorney, but then keep on having it on old business and a tally of how much we're spending.
Okay,
All right.
okay.
John, did you want to say something else again?
I do.
Could you make it
Thank
short,
you.
please?
Anything I can't stand is to be lied to. Now, these guys just came up here and told you people that
I
they.
don't want you talking about the gentleman that were here
Okay,
speaking.
okay.
Something
I
pertinent to.
I just want to make a point. I have knowledge of what goes on here, okay? And I have nothing wrong with the Mexicans coming up here and working, okay? I don't. It doesn't bother me a bit. But when somebody...
Okay, I can't hear you guys.
How do I say this? At these quarries, there's a lot of Mexicans working, and the company bought a house to house them. So they're not really supporting any families in this area. And anybody, personally, I want these people out of the state. And anybody that loses
We
their...
need something pertinent to what's just been happening. As far as
I just told
nationality
you.
of people that are working and what's happening behind the scenes, I really don't want to hear it.
They aren't supporting families here.
Thank you. Any other comments or any other questions before we proceed? I think we have a direction that we'd like to
Yes,
go.
Preston and I have our direction and we'll proceed. Yep,
I
thank you.
I thank all the folks that did come out for this meeting to voice their concerns, and we will stay in touch, and we'll do what we can on our end and see what happens. And I think the pressure from everybody would help wherever you could reach out to do that too, as far as the state and the Act 250. I imagine the document that we just got, the 2023 document, is a good start. I'm curious to see what happens after a document like this is filed. When does the enforcement finally happen? But we'll see what we could do. Any other comments? That's it? All right. If there's folks here that would like to leave the meeting, I'll take about a 2-minute break, or you could stick around for the next item on our agenda. It's up to you guys.
Arnie, use your mic.
Excuse me, everybody, we're going to reconvene the meeting, and I would like everybody, if you could please take your conversations outside, please.
Can I have your attention, please? We're going to reconvene the meeting. If you have additional conversations, please hold them outside. Otherwise, find your seat. We'll resume the meeting shortly. Thank you.
They said it couldn't. You almost have to eat the thing.
Did you? Yeah. All right, one down. Go. Sorry. All right. I don't need to talk about this.
Okay, we'd like to reconvene the meeting, and we'll go on to our next agenda item. On our agenda, it says executive session, and that might take place after the interviews, but we're going to do the interviews in an open session for everybody.
Can we back up a minute, because it looks like new business next agenda?
Oh,
is
yeah.
next. Did we
All
move
right.
that?
Thanks, Vice Chair.
Thanks, Lee.
Yep.
Appreciate it. I was wanted to get it a little bit quicker, I think, and I'm kind of skipping things. New business, future agenda items. Does anybody have anything that they would like to see on future agendas or new business?
Yeah, Housing Committee?
Yeah, we did have talk about that, the housing.
We
housing
talked about that.
committee.
It will not be ready for the next agenda. I can certainly give you an update under old business, if you'd like.
Yep, cool.
Sure.
So I noticed in our packet, we got a copy of the Town of Chester Conflict of Interest Policy. Is that something just for our information? Are we going to discuss that?
I gave
Because there's
you
a couple of things that are in there that I think would be interesting to talk about.
Sure. I gave it to you because it's directly mentioned in your Citizen Advisory Committee policy. So I wanted, especially new board members who probably have never seen this, to be able to have it. So they
Honestly,
know.
I hadn't seen it.
It's,
Old board members haven't seen it. I think it would be a good discussion because of the new members and because there actually is something that pertains to exactly what's going on.
Yes.
do you want that as an agenda item next
Yes,
time?
not
Okay.
the next meeting. Thanks, Lee. Anything else for future agenda items? You brought it up under old business for the high school,
Yep.
the reps
Keep
for
it
that.
under old
We'll
business,
just,
yeah.
we'll just keep that going on that end of it. Hearing none, we'll move on to our interviews for the Police Advisory Committee. We're going to do them in open session, and usually with items like this, in the past, we've had the people just speak out, come up to the microphone, give us their name, tell a little bit about themselves, why they would like to be on the board, and why they think they would be a good fit for the board. We're just going to go down the list as it is here, and after the person gives us a little presentation, the board members that are here might have some other questions for you, and we'll just take it from there, and we'll go down, and then we end up doing our deliberation and executive session to come up with, I think we have five seats open on it. It's great to see that we have probably almost 10 people on here that were interested in the position or interested in helping, to helping the town and being on the Citizens Advisory Committee. So we'll start out, you're right on the top of the list, Leslie. Can you please come up to the mic and tell us a little bit about yourself, why you would like to be on the board, and how you would be a fit for that? It's Leslie
Hi.
Thorson.
Yes, thank you, Leslie Thorson. I'll break the ice for the rest to follow. I went through the PDF that Julie had sent of or actually from the Select Board, about things you would like to see. And so I'm just going to start with a quick idea of what I would dream of a police advisory committee with a mission statement. The mission of the Chester Police Advisory Committee is to foster a collaborative partnership between the community and the Chester Police Department. This includes working together to solve problems and provide public safety through fair and impartial policing. Some of the other categories listed were chosen for professionalism, and I was the Chester Town Health Officer for about 15 years, and I believe that I conducted myself quite professionally, and I had to negotiate a lot of issues between rental properties, landlords and tenants, and I believe I actually did a lot of good work there without involving the police, for example, or any kind of health orders, it just using my negotiation skills. At work, I'm on the policy committee. I'm an operating room nurse, and I understand that policies are very important for keeping patients safe and for everyone knowing what the rules are. I was on the perioperative leadership team in a smaller hospital where we actually took a lot of conflict and turned it into disconnects that we worked on, and we actually came out in an amazing place at the end. Integrity and commitment to the community. I love the youth of our community. I was an ELF mother, which was environmental learning for the future, and I did that for all of my 3 children, starting from kindergarten through to the 6th grade. The 5th and 6th graders got environmental citizenship. I did that and brought some of the fun ones, like the bobcat tracking, down to the lower grades. I also volunteered for the ski program up until COVID. So I feel like I have a commitment to the community, and I recently got a Master's of Restorative Justice because of just the way things are going in our country with school shootings and all the division that we have. And I have some really good ideas about restorative circles I would love to do at the high school with the police. I would love the kids who go to high school to be able to voice their concerns. Do they feel safe? What's going on? And that's it. Any questions?
Any questions from any board members?
So Leslie, if I could ask, what's your opinion of the police department in Chester now?
Well, actually, I don't know right now. I'm unfamiliar with the new officers. I'm very happy that we're starting sort of fresh and that we can work together as a team. This is a very team-oriented thing. I know there's an issue going on Potash Road that involves a mental health issue, and that's the kind of issue that oftentimes ends up with someone being hurt. I don't want the police to be hurt. Any officer, there's a statistic, 22% of police officers that lose their lives at work, it's with a domestic disturbance. I have ideas about that. There's crisis intervention training, which is a 40-hour program. I would love to see a police-embedded social worker, and not in the sense of that they would drive around, but when you have a situation going on like what's going on with Potash Road, social workers obviously has much more training and knowledge to deal with something like that so that everyone can be safe. I would love to see, good communication between the police and the people of the town, that the policies are well understood. I've noticed in the legislature that if there's not a law about something and a certain situation happens and there's no law that addresses it, then there can't be fault found for the person. So having a clear understanding of our policies, do they work in our town? I understand that our policies all come from the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns. Does that work for a smaller town? Do they need those more for the bigger towns? And I am not interested in actually any type of, like a lot of the police advisory committees deal with citizen complaints. And that's not at the top of my list, but I would like that to be something that, if it's a serious complaint, the way the system works when you make a complaint, it's just not handled properly, like what we're having with the Julian Quarry. It's like, we can deal with this locally, and we can deal with it with communication, and that's what I foresee.
So, follow-up, when you say a complaint, it's a complaint against the police department or an officer?
Right, and I see a lot of thank you for getting me back to that point. I see a lot of the advisory committees, I was looking at their mission statements actually, and a lot of their mission statements are revolving around that, Now, I believe there should be accountability, but I would not say I'm focusing on what's wrong. Let's focus on what's happening. What kind of calls are the police going to? We don't know. If you look at our website, there's nothing listed there. If you look at other websites, Springfield, Hartford, they say how many calls they went on, what the calls are for. If we have no idea what the police are going on calls for, how can we be part of the solution as a community? Because community problems are what the police respond to. And if it's a drug problem, if it's a homelessness problem, if it's a mental health problem, I think we could solve it with a little community input. And instead of just, there are things that the police, their job should be done at a certain point, and then we work together. How can we support this family? How can we support that person? Maybe we should go to the legislature. We don't have enough mental health beds, So I'm very interested in helping the community and the members of the community who are struggling and not ending up in jail for a mental health issue, etc.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Any other questions from Heather? You okay? Board members?
Sorry, I'm on mute. I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for jumping in.
I have a couple more questions. I just didn't want to dominate.
You didn't want to hog the mic.
You mentioned a few things that you'd like to see. Is there anything specific about the Chester Police Department that you think they should be doing or not doing?
Well, I'd like to know what they are doing, and then that's why if we have an advisory committee, we can find out what are they doing, and I'm not saying that in a negative way at all, but what are they doing, what could they be doing, what can we be doing to help them?
So how would your role, if you were appointed to the advisory committee, how would your role reflect, or what would you expect you to be doing?
I would like to bring in restorative justice. I would like to...
What does that mean?
Restorative justice is where... Actually, the Julian Quarry would be a great example of restorative justice, where we all sit in a room in a circle and we talk about, they heard tonight the impact of what they did, what they are doing. And so a circle wouldn't be as much placing the blame as opposed to people being accountable for their behavior. So once a person hears how their behavior is affecting someone, then that gives them the opportunity, which you suggested and Heather suggested, to do the right thing. And so I would like, there is a town, and I'm going to go sit in on one, they're doing a restorative justice circle with the police and the community members. We don't know what our community members want or need. We don't know. And so when we sit in a circle together, and it's safer. So let's say we do a restorative justice circle at the high school with the kids, and we have the police, in the circle, it would be a totally planned out thing. Then let's just say one night they pull someone over and there's a chance that the officer could be nervous. But if they already know that person from the high school, and then that kid knows the officer, I think there'd be a much better outcome for everybody, as opposed to being fearful on either side. So a restorative justice circle is just hearing what everyone has to say, and then trying to heal a harm if there's been a harm, like, maybe make an apology, make it up to you, but I would be focusing on that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else?
Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you. And thank you for doing this.
So on my list, I did have Carrie King as second, but she withdrew her interest, and in place, we have Susan Bourne.
Hi, I'm Susan Bourne, and I just wanted to say that the restorative justice movement has been around for 15 or 20 years?
Yeah.
It's well organized. It's been utilized in schools and communities, and they've had they used it at Parks Place. I was a member of the Restorative Justice Board there, and some of the young offenders came into the circle, and we discussed what had happened with them and what might be an alternative, or how they could make up, do community service and that kind of thing. So it's a well-organized and well-established practice. And that's not what I want to talk about.
Okay, well, can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Can you give me an example of what that would look like in Chester, specifically to our high school students? I mean, I know Leslie just gave an example,
Well, you
but
can
I'm
have
just wondering if
you
there's
can have
something.
circles with any age group or mixed groups. It's a circle. It's based on the Native American powwow and the circle, and it's come down from Canada through the Native Americans, and it's disseminated through social workers or community workers. And so you draw the circle, you get into the circle, and you speak your concerns, whatever they may be. If you're the offender, then you speak to that. If you're a social worker, you speak to how that might be addressed. If you're a parent, you address your concerns. Everybody speaks from their own point of view. And sometimes they even use a talking stick so that there isn't crosstalk, and people are actually heard and can speak and say what they need to say and be heard. And that in itself is a great power.
So,
in the high school?
yeah, in Chester, can you give me an
Well,
example?
for example, the
how
young
this has been
woman
used?
who's been racially profiled, or whatever, however you say it, that would be a great opportunity for a restorative justice circle for those who have spoken to her, about her, to come together in the same circle, in the same room, and share their feelings and see how they might come to some kind of common ground.
Okay, thank you.
So I came here in hopes of becoming a member of the advisory committee, specifically as a representative for the seniors, because I am a senior, and I live on the senior circle in Chester, in the Chester Apartments. I've been in Chester for about 7 years, and in that time, I've had a lot of one-on-one experience with the seniors, emergencies, police, EMT, calling them, dealing with them, intermediary, helping people who are dying, and all that entails. We're also pedestrians, and pedestrians have special needs, like sidewalks, and safe crosswalks, and well-delineated crosswalks. Those are some of the issues that I would like to see addressed, because they're very basic issues of safety. Walking across the street is almost like taking your life in your hands these days, and that's not tenable as a citizen or a walker or a senior or somebody in the town. So that's one thing the police have done. The other day, on Sunday, they were at the tea at the Old Catholic Church. They actually came out with lights and directed the Flatlanders going home, you know, and streamlined the traffic. And I was like, yes, that is so wonderful. So I'd also like to start advocating or having discussions about a senior center in Chester. We have the senior circle, but there are a lot of seniors in Chester who don't live on the senior circle. And I'd like to know who they are, and we'd like to have a place to congregate. There are also issues we could use restorative justice for, issues of senior bullying, which my concern is not so much seniors being bullied, as though that happens, but seniors bullying seniors. I've been researching that for years, and I have yet to find any information or anyone or anywhere that addresses that. And that's a very present concern for me and for the people who live at the senior circle and any other seniors who are encountering that kind of behavior. I think that the seniors, that there needs to be more community integration of the seniors and the school children and the community. COVID really put the kibosh on that. When I first moved here, my first visitor and my first knock on the door was with the school children on May Day. coming to give me a basket, you know, and it was so wonderful. And that all went away with COVID, you know, Gassett's Grange coming around and giving Christmas gifts, and, you know, all those person-to-person kind of interactions just disappeared. So it would be wonderful to have places where the seniors could interact with the school children in a safe, supervised manner, because all those are the real concerns that we have these days.
Susan, you originally had put your name in, then you took it out, you put it back. Why'd you take it out the first time?
Well, a little bit of fear, I think, a little bit of concern about representing people who may not particularly like me or respect me, because meetings tend to run on and it's way past my bedtime, you know? That kind of thing, very real practical things. But then I was walking down the street, and at the crosswalk to the elementary school, I saw Chief Williams. I hope he doesn't mind my naming him. And he said, "How are things at the senior circle?" And I said, "Oh, you know, so-and-so fell down." I called 911. They came and picked him up, you know. And I said, "Well, I put my name in for the advisory committee," but then I had second thoughts about it. He said, "I think you'd be really good. I think, you know, it'd be wonderful for you to reconsider." So I did, and I realized that it was silly of me to hold myself back if I have something to offer because other people don't like me. You know, that's their issue, that's not mine. So that's why.
Thank you. Any questions from board members? All good?
Thank you.
No, actually, I have a couple questions.
Sorry. Better.
What's your opinion of the police department currently?
I think it's opening up. I think it's got new personnel, new direction. Just the fact that somebody is considering having this committee is a step forward in reaching out to the community and accepting responsibility as peacekeepers in the community. I've seen the police more active and more on the streets in the last couple of weeks than I have in the last couple of years, which is definitely a change. Also, there are the speeders. You know, I want to get out there with an old hair dryer, you know, and clock them. You know, something to get them to slow down. It's so dangerous. And sidewalk etiquette, that's a big one of mine. You know, I can walk down the sidewalk. I'm an elder. There's 4 mothers and 3 children and 2 strollers. Nobody moves. So that's an ancient custom, but it used to be that you know, let the elders go through, or at least you shared the sidewalk or something. So these are really simple things that have gotten lost, and I think the police can help with that. But they also need to be aware of the concerns. And I know there's a little bit of, I guess we could call it ennui, boredom or tiredness of having to come to the senior circle so often. But people do fall down, and they have medical issues, and they need to be addressed. And fortunately, we can call on the police and the EMT, and they come. And I think I heard a word about recently the police and the EMTs and the fire all cross-training so that they could help cover for one another. Yeah, I think that's great.
Thank you.
That's it? One question?
I think
Well,
so.
you've answered the rest of them.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next candidate is Vincent Buchholz.
Hi, I'm Vincent Buchholz. I've been living in Chester for about 5 years now. Went through the Westminster, Vermont Elementary School. 57 years old, have a couple kids. I come here as a representative of the mental health community. I am a licensed independent clinical social worker in the state of Vermont. I can diagnose and treat mental health illness, and I have been since 1999. I've been working in community mental health. I've been working in hospital systems in Boston, so I have a lot of medical background. I've been working with people in death and dying. I've sat with hundreds of people to help them pass on. I've got a lot of exposure with a lot of the socioeconomic disparities that are happening all over the place. I have a question, it's way past my bedtime too. So I'm really tired, so I apologize if I start yammering on a bit. But the idea of the restorative justice thing is something that's always been interesting to me, moving through mental health. The ideas of mental health liaisons between or with the police department and the community has been something that I've been involved with in the Brattleboro areas and so on, which I think would be really important to this community as well. This board is really important as a resource to the community, as it says very directly in the policy, and the police department. I think as far as being there for the community and the police department in a mental health capacity is something that I would offer my services for. I would really enjoy being in that middle as a listener. That's something I've been, that's what I do. I listen 150%, no judgment, and I actually care about what people say. So that's why I would like to be here in this capacity.
Any questions? Lee?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm typing notes here, sorry. So what is your opinion of the police department currently?
Right now, I'm seeing that it's open and ready to hear, and so that's good enough for me.
Is there anything in specific that you would change one way or the other? Things are doing well, things are not doing well, that you know?
Mm-hmm. No, not specifically. I mean, my general opinion is that they're open and ready to hear, and I'll be there to listen.
Okay.
That's what I'm for.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we're good. Thank you, Mr. Buckholz.
All right, I can go.
Roy Spalding.
Hello, Roy Spalding, owner-operator Spalding Service Station in Gassets. I've lived here my entire life. We're now into our 4th generation running the business. So we've had the opportunity to see the ups, the downs, the good, the bad, all along the way. So it kind of gives you a unique opportunity to try to weigh out things in a longer term than just the day that you're doing it. The way I see this committee working is, to me, I think it's going to be more of an up hand for the PD and the town, instead of looking towards the bad side of it. Here we can show the PD what they do on the good side, what the town does on the good side, and that I think will make the people much more aware of the good stuff that happens. Yes, the bad stuff happens and you got to deal with it, but they never hear the upside of what the PD. I mean, one of the greatest programs that probably Chester ever had was the DARE program at the grade school. I mean, that's just, if you start young, you don't have this fear. Every time you see a police officer, you're not losing it. The little DARE stickers. My daughter's about to graduate. She still has one she got in grade school. And that's the kind of stuff that really means a lot to the community, rather than going after some, yes, they got to help, but if you can lift up, put a good word, it goes a lot further than, trying to, but yes, they are going to have to mediate stuff. But I don't know, this board might be something to mediate to a small fashion, but the big deals are still going to have to go back to the PD and to the town. But, like I said, living here for almost 60 years, and the stories from my grandfather and my father from the 50s, 60s, all the way up through, gives you an opportunity to have a big field of vision.
Questions?
You can answer mine. What do you see as, what's your opinion of the police department currently?
I sat on the board that helped, pick the new chief. But I think, they got a good system going when you're online and you can see where, this is what we're doing and this, and I'm, staying involved in the school is going to be the secret all the way through, whether it's a grade school, all the way up through. And no, I think, especially when they were talking about doing the cross training and all of that and having the people be able to run 2 or 3 of the avenues, whether you're a fire or ambulance or whatever, is huge. Not only money-wise for the town, but just response time. And no, I think they're doing exactly what they need to be doing, and that's.
So your involvement in this committee would be, I think you said, encouraging the police department and helping out to be that liaison between the town and, yeah.
Not the go-between, but just a helping town member with a voice,
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Good. I think we're good, Roy. Thank you. Wendy Germain?
He's online.
You're online, Wendy?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, there you are.
There we go. Yes, hi, I'm online. Sorry I couldn't be there with you tonight.
So basically the same questions. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you would like to be on the board and why you think you'd be a good fit.
Sure. So I'm Wendy Germain. I was born and raised in Springfield, and my husband and I purchased our house here in Chester about 25 years ago. So we've been here since then. I'm so excited to hear so much about restorative justice. I am a restorative justice practitioner. I have been for about 20 years. I'm a trained mediator. When I worked at the Justice Center in Springfield, I worked with the police department there to create neighborhood watch programs. So we divided the community into quadrants and created a neighborhood watch program in each quadrant. What we found was needed was somebody that could really help coordinate things to start with to get these watch programs off the ground, and then pass them off to the community members and let them move forward. So we had a lot of success getting those programs going. And what we found there was the police were being called in for a lot of things that weren't necessarily things that the police needed to be called in on. They were more, neighbor to neighbor disputes. But with neighborhood watch programs, the neighbors got to know each other a little bit better and were able to work out those problems on their own. I'm a trained mediator too, so I did work with those neighborhood watch programs and doing some mediations for, just the small neighborhood conflict stuff. You're blowing your leaves in my pool, those kinds of things that don't really need to involve the police department. So for me, that was very rewarding. I've worked in social services for my entire career. I am part of the mental health agency now. So I really, respect the gentleman that went before me, being willing to offer his services. I think that could be a huge benefit to our community. I think often police are put in the position of having to deal with mental health issues, but don't really have the training or the knowledge to really deal with that kind of stuff. No, I'm not blaming them at all. It's not part of what their training is. I have a ton of respect for our police social work programs that we have. We have them in Windham and Windsor counties. I think we've really been on the forefront of that type of a program. I know we were kind of an example for the nation when we first got started. So I think we have a lot of really good things going for us. And I think having this committee and having the connection of the community and the police department and this committee working as the intermediary could be a huge benefit as far as information sharing and, receiving suggestions from the community and then bringing that back to the PD. So, I just feel like I have a lot of ideas and experience that I would love to share with my community.
Thank you, Mr. May. Questions from the board? I'm looking at you.
Yeah. He's got the good
So,
question.
hi Wendy, Lee Gustafson. I'm going to ask you the same question. What is your opinion of the police department now?
I think that they've been at a real disadvantage for a long time. I think they've been understaffed. I think they've been blamed for a lot of things that haven't necessarily been their fault. I know where we live, people were frustrated with the police because they weren't getting the responses they needed when they were understaffed and just were doing the best they could, but couldn't do everything that needed to be done. But I feel like now there's kind of this breath of fresh air that's come in, and we have the opportunity to really reinvent ourselves and really be what the community wants the PD to be. So I'm excited for that.
Is there anything that you would change for the better, or what do you see the police department doing now that could be better or that they're doing well?
I think they're doing the best they can. I think, like I said before, oftentimes the police get called into situations that that don't necessarily require police intervention. And I think sometimes that pulls them away from the more important things that do require their intervention. So I think if we can put some supports in place for them so that they can respond to the things that require their expertise, that will help them be more effective in our community.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Germain.
Thank you.
Larry Simones.
Hi, I'm Larry Simonis. I've been a resident in Chester for 10 years now. I was introduced to Chester in 1968. My wife that brought me here for the first time. And so I've had a connection since then, and her family has been here for multiple generations. So I've heard all the stories of Chester growing up, and when we had 4 gas stations and 4 grocery stores and 2 banks and all that. So I think I have a pretty good history. I grew up in Southwest Virginia, spent 4 years in the military. That's where I met my wife. I think I bring some experience. I've lived in suburban Baltimore, central Pennsylvania. I've worked in sales in healthcare, management part of that time. So I was known as someone who was a straight shooter, could work towards a consensus, and I'd like to think I could bring that to this situation. I'll answer Lee's question real fast. I think the police department is on it up and up. I don't think any of us had an idea of how much the emergency services building would help, I think, the police department, fire department, and everything, because it's just become I'll say a center, and the positive things that came out of the cooperation during the storm last week, I think was a very positive thing.
Any board members?
Got
have any
another
other
question,
questions?
Ally?
Anything that you think the police department is doing well or could do better?
Well, I came to a meeting they had last summer when they were talking to citizens about the police department, and just watching some of the comments that show up on Facebook and things. I think there's some folks who have an expectation of our 5-man police department that is just totally unrealistic. I mean, we've got 100 miles of mud and dust and all this other stuff, and I'd like to see somehow you get some citizen involvement. Just last Thursday, delivering meals, I go into a house with two roughly 80-year-old folks. They still have a wood stove working, but their telephone doesn't work, the cell phone doesn't work, no electricity, and we're hoping to see somebody soon. Some way, maybe we could have a few people around that could monitor that senior or remote person that we know. I know I ran into Chief Williams, who told me about a man sleeping in his car because he couldn't get to his house. It's hard to know about all those things, but I think if we were a little more aware as citizens, we could hopefully help out in that situation.
So as part of the advisory committee, if you were appointed, what do you see the role of that committee?
Well, I think you get the good fortune of being first, so you kind of get to create. I think you do some listening, some questioning. What are the needs? What is going to be the best thing? What makes the most sense? Because I don't think any of us can walk in and say, this is what we want to do. Well, I don't know, we probably wouldn't call it an advisory committee if that what we were going to do. We're going to call it something else. But I think you just have to go in with an open mind with thought of we can reach consensus and do what's best for the town.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Simonis. Mr. Frank Kelly.
Good evening, Select Board. Thank you. My name is Frank Kelly, and I too am up way past my bedtime. I reviewed the information that was shared about the Police Advisory Committee. I believe I have some knowledge, skills, perspectives that could be beneficial and valuable to the committee. I've been a resident of Chester for almost 25 years now. During that time, I've had the pleasure of working with the Chester Police Department in a variety of ways. As a teacher, I've had the pleasure of meeting many of the families that are here in town and working with those families through good times and bads, through bad times as well. I've been part of the DARE and the LEAD programs, which are presented to the fifth graders at Chester Andover Elementary School. It's provided important information, as has been stated, to students about how to keep themselves and their peers safe when faced with potentially challenging situations. I've also interacted with the Chester Police Department when students were having a not very good day and struggling to be successful at school. And throughout my career as an educator, I have seen the benefits of appropriate interventions that support a person or a group of people as they are learning the importance of making good choices. Chester Police Department has also provided valuable services to myself and my family. Whether being served a subpoena, it was because someone ran into us in New Hampshire and was not making a good choice by driving away, or supporting the Chester Andover Crossing Guard or coping with the loss of a loved one, Chester Police Department has shown that effective policing involves awareness, compassion, and respect. Some people may rightfully see law enforcement officers as a potential threat based on their experiences. I believe that the Police Advisory Committee can help share the message that Chester Police Department is doing their best each and every day to support every person who lives in or visits our community. I am interested in learning more about the process that the Police Advisory Committee will develop to reach the stated goals. I am obviously happy to share more details about my experience and how it may be beneficial to the committee. P.S. In regards to what I think about the committee, about the police department these days, they did a really good job with their lesson on Monday with the LEAD program. And for those who don't know, LEAD stands for Law Enforcement Against Drugs. They did a good job with their lesson. They were out at the crosswalk, and I've seen them in a variety of situations around town, helping out. I don't have any specific things right off the bat. I come in as a learner myself to say, like, okay, what's going on, as has been stated, to then figure out how to support them. And it was interesting that in coming down today, I stopped chatted with a few friends who were walking up our road, and they said, geez, you know, you got to let them know that those Facebook postings where the Chester Police is posting something really neat that they either saw or did or were part of is really something that should continue. So I wanted to pass that along as well. I'll take any other multiple choice questions.
No
Hearing
further
none.
questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Frank.
Next candidate is Samantha Snedort Bailey, and I believe you're with us online.
Yes, hi, thank you so much. I have been living in Chester, I'm a Chester resident, and I have been for the past 3 years, and I feel like I could be a valuable asset, or at least be able to contribute, where I don't have any necessary political experience or any of those kinds of things. I do have personal experience, particularly as a person of color. I think given Chester's kind of demographics, that, or like it means that I have a little bit more insight or different insight that could be needed, or used perspective that could be a little bit different. And particularly, I mean, myself, I have in Chester and around experienced some negatively charged encounters, which in the first one I was denied service, and the second I was seemingly accused of stealing. And I can only guess that was based on my race. And while that doesn't have anything to do with the police department, it doesn't mean it's impossible. Because when it comes down to racism and racial things like that, it's so impossible to predict. You know, and again, like I say, my experience with the police department, the Chester department, has been absolutely fantastic. I think they are very sweet. My mom was here, and they offered to take a photo with her, and I absolutely love seeing their presence around. I do always keep in the back of my mind that incident that did occur several years ago, where there was a black man who was stopped, and I mean, I'm sure everyone knows, you know, kind of wrongfully accused, and there was the investigations and all of that, and that does put fear in my heart, and I'm sure many other people. I mean, just living in this country as a person of color, you know, it's already a disadvantage. And again, I'm not inferring or insinuating that there's any racism there, but what I do think is I could offer, my brain just farted there. We could touch on topics, for example, that people perhaps are afraid to touch on when it comes to race. I think everything is very delicate. People are very anxious around race and racism, and, you know, like I said, I would be able to put my opinion forward with confidence. And on top of that, I, you know, kind of in one of those situations where the woman, I felt like she was accusing me. In her mind, she wasn't. And I think, you know, that comes down to perhaps people say things and they don't intend for it to be racist, but it can come across that way. And like I said before, I think kind of the mediator, or at least being able to contribute that way, particularly as a mixed race woman. And yeah, I think that is about it. Yeah, I think that's about it. I just want Chester to continue to feel safe. Because it's an absolutely gorgeous, lovely town. And that if there is any potential for this sort of situations to arise, that kind of language can be taught to avoid that kind of negative or seemingly racist language, actions, behavior.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. Questions from the board?
Everyone's looking at me. So, Samantha, Lee Gustafson, can you tell me your opinion of the police department right now? I think you answered this question, but I'd appreciate another response.
Yeah. No, I really do. I mean, in my country, there's no such thing as the police department like this. I love seeing them at the crosswalk during school hours. And, you know, my one issue I really do, and I know someone brought it up, it has been brought up multiple times, is the kind of speeding on the main road that is, like, shocking. And hopefully something can happen from that. But I do feel safe. I feel also that this board absolutely is such a good community resource, as Vincent said, and as Frank said as well. Like, the police could be viewed as a threat, particularly as someone like myself. And so in them opening their arms like this, or the committee doing this, would kind of make them on, really.
And if there were anything that you could change about the police department, what would that be?
Personally, I don't know of anything that I would change. Again, I think this kind of committee would give us an idea, insight into what is going on, kind of the workings, inner workings, and just be sure that there are practices in place to prevent anything that we would kind of want to change or be overly worried about.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. And our next candidate is Marilyn Mahusky.
Thank you all. I'm Marilyn Mahusky, for those of you I've not met before. I'll just briefly tell you that I've lived in Chester now for about 30 years. I raised my kids here. I served on this Chester School Board, Chester Elementary School Board, as chair for quite a number of years before we merged into the Two Rivers Supervisory Union, and I served on the Green Mountain School Board and also on the Two Rivers Board. So I've had a lot of experience working on committees and dealing with those kinds of issues. I'm probably going to approach this. I think it's been very interesting to hear people's comments, their interests, why they're interested in participating in this committee. By profession, I'm an attorney, so I tend to look at things from that point of view and thinking about the purpose of this committee. I think part of it is to learn about the department. I've read the report that was done a number of years ago by the consultants about the police. My sense is that we have a good, strong police department, and there's room for improvement. I think we've got some clear guidance from this report. I think that we have a new chief who's going to bring some new energy. I read what his interview from the Telegraph. I was really encouraged to read his comments, his invitation for maybe changing the way policing is done in Vermont, in Chester, and by that I mean of having greater contact and interactions with the community. And I think that's what we've heard reflected here tonight, is a desire for the police to be have more of a presence in the community, in more of a positive presence. I also want to say that part of my impetus for wanting to do this was the concern, and it's mentioned in this report as well, about the Human Rights Commission complaint of a number of years ago. I think we can't be naive as a community. I think we need to be aware that what's going on nationally goes on in our state and in our community. We're fortunate that we don't have many of the challenges to the degree that happens nationwide, but I think a citizen committee like this can really help identify where there might be concerns, help with training to ensure police are trained, that they're aware of some of the issues and that they have the support of their community and of their police force when they're in really difficult, challenging situations, because they will be. I also want to say that when I was an attorney for many years, I'm now in private practice, but when I worked for a public interest organization, I represented victims of crime. That was part of my work. And I also represented people who were being involuntarily committed to the psychiatric facilities. The people who are victims of crime, people who have been, who are going through a psychiatric crisis, often have very negative interactions with the police. And so I think that perspective can be helpful because it's twofold. One is that there's this negative interaction, but then there's also a recognition of the value that police bring to us in our communities. There are times people need the police. And we want our police to be trained, we want them to be sensitive, and we want them to be prepared when the situation calls for it to respond. To cut you off before you get started, Lee, I don't have strong feelings about the Chester Police Department. I honestly have had very little interactions with them over the years. I will say that the one time I came home and my back door was wide open, and I called the police, and they came right very quickly, and they came through the house, and they went upstairs, and they said, well, everything looks pretty neat, but there's this one bed upstairs that's really messed. messed up. Well, it wasn't my bed, but my daughter had been home, and she went out the back door, and evidently, because I had a new door put on, it didn't close very well. You know, I was relieved in that instance because it could have been a bad situation, right? Somebody could have been in my home, but the police came, they came quickly, they were very responsive. Most people probably have those kind of interactions with the police, or they have an interaction where they're pulled over for speeding, which I have had that occasion too, but not in Chester. And I've had good interactions and negative in that instance, right? And so I think that what I can bring is some professional experience, community experience, commitment to our community, and hopefully can help maybe channel some of the ideas that people have and make this into a really productive organization. I think that it's not our job to change the way police do things. It's our job to look at how the work is done, interact with the chief to help make changes and improvements, be a sounding board. It's not our job to rewrite how the police do their business, but it is important for us to support them as a community so that they can do the best job for our community. So.
Any questions? Any other questions?
So I have a question. You brought up the Human Rights Commission complaint that was filed several years ago. Can you tell me what your understanding is of that particular case?
Well, I read the complaint and I read the town's response to that complaint, and I'm aware that that there was a mediated settlement. So it's my understanding. I mean, I can tell you what my understanding of the facts are of that case. You know, there are always two sides to the story. You know, but my understanding is that. BOLO, Be on the Lookout, was issued by a neighboring community. It was an anonymous call, and I'm not going to get all the facts right, it's been a little while. It was reported that a black man who had red dreadlocks was driving a car that had an unusual paint combination. That car, looking similarly, was identified by the Chester police in town. Turned out the driver was also a black man who had dreadlocks. If I'm remembering correctly, the driver of the car pulled over and the police officer pulled up behind him. And I don't believe I don't believe the lights were put on initially. I'm not going to remember whether the person who was driving the car got out first, but I know he got out of his car. I know there was an allegation that the Chester police officer pulled out a gun. I think it went, I think there were some interactions back and forth, but the individual did leave. And I'm also aware that afterwards there were some comments that were made by the chief and the officer that could be interpreted as racist. So that's my understanding. The Human Rights Commission found that there was reason to believe that the Chester police had discriminated against this individual, and as they do, filed a charge, and then the town engaged in a settlement of that, negotiated settlement of that complaint so that it didn't go to court.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any questions? No.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And down to our last candidate, David Brault.
Good evening. My name is David Bro. I've been a citizen here in Chester for the past 30 years. It's a great town to live in. I spent the better part of my life in law enforcement, 46 years to be exact. I'd probably still be there if it wasn't for 2 bouts of cancer and a stroke. But I think that I'm very saddened and I'm very disheartened at what's been going on in this country with police departments, with the number of people who have been hurt, with the number of complaints that have been made. I think it's unnecessary. I think there's a lot of lack of communication between the citizens and between the police department and the town councils and the city councils. My career has spanned law enforcement from the U.S. Coast Guard to city police departments to town police departments 2 campus police departments, and also corrections for a year, and the Sheriff's Department in Bellows Falls here in Vermont. I've had a lot of different jobs within those departments, and I've enjoyed every minute of it, the time that I spent. I think that the committee is very important to this town, to every town should have one. I think that there are 3 things that need to be done: accessibility between the police department, the citizens, the town council, communication between the citizens, the police department, the town council, and accountability for the police department and the citizens within the town as well. You can't expect the citizens to go scot-free and not be held accountable for their actions, but you certainly can't allow the police department to go scot-free and not hold up to their end of the bargain and have their accountability on their part. I have known, worked with, interacted with every police officer in this town, including our new chief, and I enjoyed working with them. When I was in Bellows Falls in the Sheriff's Department, I worked with them quite extensively at times. I think that the new chief is going to bring a great new view to this town and for the police department. I think he's going to bring a lot of new ideas to it, which are needed. The police department, as far as I can see, is doing the best job it can with what it's got and with the tools that it has. And I think that our new chief is going to make it even better. Thank you very much. Any questions?
So I've gotten your insight into the police department, how you feel with the police department. Do you see anything that they're doing well or could improve?
I think they're doing everything that they can well. I think that, again, they're limited by what a lot of police departments in this state and a lot of police departments around the country are: lack of people. People, especially young people, are seeing police officers getting shot and hurt and killed and brought up on charges of excessive use of force and stuff like that, and they're saying, I don't want anything to do with this. And because of that, the state's hurting. We're a small state. We have 2,500 police departments in this entire state, and that includes Department of Motor Vehicles, state police, local police, sheriff's departments, and DMV, and liquor control. That's not very many police officers for a state this size. We all have to learn to work together, and we all have to get people to come to this state to become police officers and do the job of a law enforcement officer and do it right. I think that, like I said, they're doing the best they can with what they have. And I think that they're going to do better.
So one last question. You mentioned that the committee would be important and it would strive to make the accessibility, communication, accountability 3 things to improve upon. How would you see that happening? Do you have any ideas relative to those things?
Without interacting with the other members of the committee and speaking with them and talking to them, the only thing that I can really say at this point in time is that it's necessary for the citizens of this town to be able to come to a committee like the Oversight Committee and say, hey, you know, there are things that I don't like what's going on with so-and-so, or I don't like what's going on in the town. There's things that need to be improved upon, and for us to listen to them, to take those concerns to the chief, to the town council, and voice those concerns and say, okay, well, what can we do to improve that? What can we do to make this better? What can we do to take this person and make him happy and say, you know, are you satisfied with what we are now doing? If a police officer is not doing his job, that needs to be brought forth to the committee, and we need to see why he's not doing his job. Is it because he's not happy here? Is it because he's not getting enough pay? Is it because he's frustrated? Is it because he is sad? Whatever. Bring those concerns to the chief and say, you know, we have Officer Dinwiddie over here who says that he is not happy here because of. What can we do to help him to become a better police officer? Get the board members to talk amongst themselves and say, what can we do to make this a better department? What can we do to help the citizens in this town work with the police department better than what they already are doing?
Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, sir. So the procedure we're going to take is we're going to go into executive session to review the candidates and make a decision on the 5 that we're going to be appointing. You're welcome to stick around, but I know it's past everybody's bedtime, a lot of folks here, including my own. We should be taking action when we come out. I don't know how long it's going to be. And, yes, yes. Yep. Your choice. Like I said, I don't know how long it's going to take. It shouldn't be that bad, but we had
Thank you for coming.
a great group of candidates, and I really want to thank everybody.
They're done listening to you.
Can we invite the town manager to our meeting?
What's that?
Can we invite the town manager to the executive session?
I don't think anybody can hear you.
No, he wanted to know.
Well, the trouble with me, see, is I think I have a...
You're allowed to.
I'd like to hear the conversation. I'm probably not going to interject my thoughts, but unless there's a reason you don't want me in there, Ernie.
No, I would let the board make that decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the question is for the board members, do we want to invite the town manager in for the deliberation?
Absolutely.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
It looks like a yes.
Okay.
Heather? Well, it don't matter.
Oh, sure.
Heather, we're going to go down to my office. We'll call you on your cell.
Everybody
Okay.
leaves. Can we just shut the door?
Oh, if everybody's leaving, hang on.
Right, it's a, but
Hang on, Heather. It sounds like maybe everybody's just leaving.
Yeah, in which case we'll see.
You have people on Zoom now.
We do have people on Zoom that are staying, so we'll go down to my office. Heather, we'll call you.
Bye.
recording stopped. Recording in progress. No, it's just I've been perfectly happy for 3 years to just know that I can't leave my house. But now I'm like, oh, I know people now. I can ask questions.
There's often people want us up there sooner than we actually can be. Any road, that's all over town.
That's.
And it's like, no, you really don't want us on your road. Yeah.
Do you need a motion?
90% of it.
Yeah.
It's much better than it was when I grew up.
So I will make a motion to appoint the following people to
Hold on a second there.
the Chester Advisory Committee. Samantha Snedort Bailey for 1-year term. Vincent Buckholz and Roy Spalding for 2-year terms. Wendy Germain and Frank Kelly for 3-year terms.
There was some difficult choices. We've had a lot of candidates that were highly qualified with overlapping abilities and qualifications and interests, and it was really a tough choice. I think we got a diverse group to represent the town, the different aspects of town, and the folks that are on this committee, I think, going to bring a important view and an important outlook to the town to help with the police department and the advisory committee as we go forward. I want to thank everyone that was interested in this position and applied for this position. It's rare sometimes in town politics to get candidates interested and people interested in it. In this case, it was a hard choice because we had so many. I just want to thank everybody that was involved with this, and I congratulate the people that did make it. And I think we'll be getting some emails to them, and we'll be
Yes.
figuring out
Yep.
how it's going to work as far as the meetings go. There are term limits on these terms, on these terms. I forget if it was 6 years.
I think it's 2 terms.
Two
Yes,
terms
2
each, total of 6 years. So the people that did not make it, please stay in touch. And the meeting's going to be open to the public, so even though you might not be on the committee, you're still allowed to attend these meetings, to participate, and be part of it also. So,
Arnie, do you want a second on that?
yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll second it.
So Lee Gustafson's the motion, and Heather is the second. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor of those choices as stated, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So it was a unanimous decision at the end, but it was a good candidate group. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Lee made the motion. Who seconded that one?
Take a try.
Ariana seconded. Any discussion on this? All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
See you guys. Thank you.
Bye, Heather.
Bye.
Recording stopped.